Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here coming at you from the Knife Center, and it's our favorite time of the week. It's time to take a look at the coolest new knives that have just hit our shelves. So let's check them out. All right, this week we're going to be taking a look at some fancier stuff. It's going to be a little bit of a more expensive week for this particular video. If you're looking for some more affordable new knives, keep your eye out next week especially. SHOT Show is happening in Las Vegas. Thomas and I are going to be there at the show, covering all the latest unveils of the new product from as many people as we can badger into doing an interview with us, basically. And there's going to be a lot more range of stuff price-wise. Keep an eye out this Saturday as well. We're going to have a nice SHOT Show preview of some stuff that is already out, that is being officially unveiled next week, but it's out. So, fun times. This week, though, we're going to start with a new version of the Slim Pickins from Alliance Design. Nice button lock folder here, button lock flipper. $365 for this guy. Like I said, it's a premium week this week. Blade steel is L-Max. The length is just under 3 inches. You've got this very interesting blade shape. This is one of those hard to classify guys. And no, Thomas, it's not a reverse tanto.
It's a cheese knife.
Don't start with the cheese knife nonsense again. Bit of a drop point sheep's foot hybrid, perhaps. I don't know, a little bit hard to classify. Still a very useful shape though. We've got a deep hollow grind. It's gonna keeps it a nice thin geometry right behind the edge, and it maintains it pretty high up. So you're not gonna be kind of running into those shoulders right away on any kind of heavier cut. Speaking of heavier cuts, the handle actually works pretty well for them. You've got kind of an elliptical shape going on, micarta in this case, green canvas, and a bit of contouring, and you can choke up on this area right behind the sharpening choil there. And it doesn't feel that uncomfortable for a folder this size. It's pretty impressive. We've got a milled titanium pocket clip here, right side tip up only. The button lock works really well. You can do that little flip closed most of the time quite easily. The flipper tab here, nice and subtle sticking out the back, but very easy to use, very easy to close, keeps your fingers out of the way of the blade while you're doing it. Interesting thing about this button lock, unlike some out there, you can't really push that button and flick the blade open. It has a bit more of a bias towards closure on the detent there, which if you're worried about it coming open in your pocket, nice little bit of extra peace of mind right there. Really cool knife. Next up is another version of the Bestech Thyra flipper. Quite pricey, $509 right now. In this case, you get a 3.5-inch M390 blade with that horizontal grain. Very striking looking finish in this case. Titanium handles and Damascus bolsters and backspacer and your pocket clip right there. And that's where the price really comes into play on this particular knife with these exotic materials. If you like the design, you can spend much less money, closer to $300. Still not a cheap knife by any stretch of the imagination, but also not a $500 knife in that case. As far as the feel in the hand, it's not necessarily an ergonomic grip. They wanted to, ensure this was a stylish piece, but the stylish nature that they kind of gave it didn't fully compromise the feel in the hand. It's not so crazy that you don't even want to hold it. It still does work pretty well, even though it's not, like I said, quote unquote ergonomic. We've got frame lock, ball bearings in the action there, and another nice subtle flipper tab here at the back. Works pretty nicely as well. One of the nice things you see right here on the leading edge of the handle, you've got a little bit of a scoop out that joins up with the line of that flipper tab. So even though it's only a tiny bit sticking out, you feel like you've got a nice solid patch to rest your finger on when you go to fire that blade, which fires quite nicely. All right, next up, we've got an American-made knife, the EOS Dorado-S. Comes in $475. Titanium frame lock, like a lot of premium folders these days. We've got XHP steel here, just over 3 inches long, drop point shape with that cutout in the blade, and a single thumb stud right there. So it gives you essentially 2 different thumb opening options going on. Speaking of I'll close it up here. We've got a nice inlay here around the pivot on the back, made of carbon fiber, and that's also going to be your over travel stop on the frame lock itself. In terms of opening, the thumb stud works great. The thumb cutout works a little more deliberately. It's a little harder to flick than the thumb stud, but you can also do that middle finger flick if you go from the backside. Blue accents are all really nice. You've got an inlay there on the front as well. Ergonomics on this guy, it really wants you to hold the blade in, or hold the handle in just one position only, and that's kind of this saber grip right here. Brings the tip of the blade down pretty nicely. But other types of grips, like if you want to choke up, to do some more detailed work back here at the heel, other detailed things don't feel quite as natural as just this particular grip right here. I mean, you can certainly pinch above the pivot and get detail there by kind of gripping with your middle two fingers. That works okay, but really this is a very prescriptive grip in this case. Built exceptionally well though. Now, if you're looking for sort of a gentleman's tactical knife, this thing really kind of embodies that in a way. The blade is not too huge, but it is not, it's not like an executive style knife either. There's definitely some presence here, and with the orientation of that blade in that grip that feels so natural, going to be pretty effective if you needed to use it tactically, let's say. All right, next up is a bit of a sad tale, really. Want to take a minute to kind of recognize Darrel Ralph, who passed away just a few short weeks ago, and we haven't had a chance to really kind of put into words how sorry we are to hear of his passing. I do have a knife of his here. We do have some of his Dominators in stock, and I'm not here to like shill them. These are going to sell regardless, but it is a cool knife, and to be such an inimitable presence in the knife industry, well worth just taking a moment to say thanks, Darrel, for all the great designs, and our thoughts are with his family. But let's look at this really cool knife. This is the kind of thing that really put him on the map. This overbuilt, chunky titanium frame lock flipper. Dominator V5, made in the USA, comes in just under $1,000 for this one. 3 3/4 inch blade, 20 CV in this case. Wicked compound grinds. There's some really cool jeweling inside the titanium frame lock right there. We've got a Damascus clip, works well with sort of the 3-channel milled on the front here with a bead blasted texture in the kind of sunken portions. Folds up, still a nice chunky boy, flips really great. You're gonna be missed, Mr. Ralph. All right, next up, we've got some production scavengers from ADV, the integral folder that, talk about a high styling thing very much. Also not the worst handle to hold on to, even though it's a kind of an exercise in style. Works pretty well. Another proscriptive grip in this case, thanks to the angle and those aggressive finger grooves right there. You can choke back a little bit because you've got a section on the handle there at the back. If you were chopping with a knife like this, not that you would. I wouldn't either, but you could, which I guess is cool. Really vibrant, rainbow splattered anodized finish going on. A lot going on there. Damascus pivot there. Interesting pivot collar on both sides. I'm not actually sure what it is, but it's got a nice honeycomb texture, or a honeycomb pattern in it. 4 3/8 inch blade, M390, drop shut, as you can see. Still flips open really nicely because this is another premium ball bearing flipper with a frame lock. Need I say more? I mean, look at that thing. It is quite impressive. Now, if your tastes run a little more restrained, but you still want something fancy, check this out. Custom Knife Factory FIF20 Ti. Very memorable name, yes. It's a really memorable looking knife to me, at least, though. Price on these are $455. You've got an M390 blade, about 3.35 inches long, horizontal grain. And this is a drop point that is like, it's designed for me, man. It's speaking to me very much. Just a simple, classic, elegant shape with that nice grain pattern kind of pumping it up to the next level a little bit. Looks quite nice. We've got carbon fiber here for the handles with titanium bolsters. can see there's some nice milling going on there. It gives it a bit of a wavy texture, adds a little bit to the motion of the handle, even though it is a relatively straightforward shape otherwise. Feels good in the hand. It's not contoured, but it is faceted in such a way that it kind of mimics a contoured handle, and it feels really nice as a result. We've got a milled pocket clip and a liner lock in this case, as opposed to a frame lock. So if you're the kind of person who likes the more clean presentation of the backside, or a more finished presentation rather than having the cutout of the lock bar, this is definitely worth a look. Drops shut quite nicely as well. Front flipper, as mentioned, and it works pretty well, even for me who is not always the best at it. Just a super clean profile, open or closed. That's one of the advantages of a front flipper over a rear flipper, of course. Man, super, super classy. I said I have no problem with that front flipper, and I just had a problem with that front flipper. Sorry, folks. It's great. Definitely might be my favorite this week, perhaps. All right.
I don't know. There is a fixed blade.
There is a fixed blade, which is quite a nice fixed blade. This is one of the Solingen, Germany made Boker integrals, the Integral 2. This is a $255 knife, more or less. 75 cents less, I should say. 4-inch blade. Now the steel is 440C, which is not a premium material at this price range, but there is a lot more going into this knife production and hand time wise over the materials in this case. About a 4-inch blade, I don't know if I mentioned that yet. Full flat grind on this guy. Just a classic hunting knife profile overall with the nice walnut wood handles there. But when I'm talking about those details, the integral knife, in this case, the integral is talking about this bolster, which is a single piece with the rest of the blade. You get a little bit of thickness, a little bit of weight balance distribution right there. Actually balances right on the index finger, so this is going to be a very nimble knife to hold. You've got a tapered tang as well, which a tapered tang is hard enough to do in a production environment. To do that, or to be able to do that on top of still having this bolster kind of in the way, it's even a little bit more complicated to do. Really, really impressive build quality. The sheath is pretty nice too. Black leather, simple belt loop on the back, folded over, snap on the front for some retention. All right, let's keep the classy train rolling. We've got a couple new terrain 365s. The Caiman Slipjoint, kind of a Barlow-shaped knife, but without a Barlow-type bolster. $295 for these guys. You've got a 3-inch blade of Terravantium, which is a fancy name for a dendritic cobalt material, which, if you're going for edge retention, if you're going for stuff like high hardness, this does some things that steel just can't do these days. You've got a really, really long-lasting edge, and they gave it a very classic usable profile as well. Like I said, just about 3 inches, standard style of kind of slip joint clip point blade, really thin behind the edge, so you've got a very good cutting profile with the full flat grind combined with it. Quite nice. Carbon fiber for the handles. I think we've also got a titanium option for about 20 bucks more than the carbon fiber, but everything else otherwise would be the same. Lanyard point there at the back if you want to put a fob or something on it. Walk and talk, really nice. I mean, you can hear that coming through. You've got an excellent half stop, just the right kind of pressure. It's not too stiff that it's super difficult, but it's not so loose that you're going to worry about it closing on you too much in most everyday tasks. Just super nice. If you would rather have a lock though, but you want to try this steel out, we've got some more of their Invictus models, the PDW Invictus-AT. $385 for this guy. You've got a 3.5-inch blade of this dendritic cobalt material. Both these knives made in the USA, I should mention as well. Titanium on the back, carbon fiber on the front, because on the back you have that frame lock construction to keep things nice and secure. We've got a milled titanium pocket clip, and it's actually just about a deep carry pocket clip. Hard to do that with, or you don't see that too often, I should say, with a milled clip. And even on some knives with folded clips that are deep carry, they aren't quite as deep carry as this particular guy. So really nice execution there. The lock works quite nicely, easy to disengage when you want it to. You've got some nice stepped ridges there on the inside. Nice clean profile when folded up too. A little bit of glow in the dark in the thumb studs there, but it looks classy even when it's not glowing. Nice flipping action on the open, comfortable feel in the hand. The contouring works really well here, and you can even choke up on that finger choil, small finger choil there at the back to get some good detail going. A little bit more of a stout cutting geometry than that Barlow, I should say. We've got a saber height flat grind right there with the swedge behind it, or the, what's that? Yeah, the swedge. No. Fuller.
Blood groove?
Shut your mouth. Vocabulary is hard sometimes. I need more coffee. All right, next up is kind of a funny story and kind of a frustrating story a little bit. On the morning, we're getting ready to film this knife. We had a small batch of Grant and Gavin Hawk Deadlocks, Model Cs. One of my favorite OTFs out there that I'll never be able to afford because even this slightly more affordable option, it's still the better part of $1,000. And they're also in high demand. Really high demand, as it turns out, because in about the half an hour between when they posted and I picked one of them up to put in this video and actually set things up and pulled my links up over here, they had already sold out. You guys,
it's not my fault.
You guys buy a lot of knives, but I still wanted to show it to you because this is one of those kind of high points in the knife industry, certainly in the OTF automatic genre. It is archetypal because it is the only knife, only OTF truly to have absolutely zero blade play when the blade is extended. You can get really close to that now thanks to SOG with their Pentagon OTF that just came out last year. But even that has just the barest wiggle when it's open. Not enough for me to worry about. I think it's a great knife. It's about $350, but if you truly want like the best that can be done right now, this is absolutely it. Really cool. 3.5-inch blade on these Model Cs. It's a 20 CV double hollow ground profile on this particular guy. A lot of double-edged knives will just use flat grinds here, but we've actually got hollow grinds going on. The handles on the Model C here are aluminum rather than titanium, and that allowed them to do a couple of things, even though titanium is seen as more quote-unquote premium. I don't know why I air-quoted titanium, but just the word premium. The first thing it allowed them to do is it actually allowed them to slim things up just a little bit. You know, the Deadlock works great, but they needed a lot of mass to kind of achieve the lockup here. And the aluminum is a material that has a little bit more natural lubricity than something like titanium. So as I understand it, they were able to slim things down and actually kind of slim some parts up because they were able to move more freely with this material, which is kind of neat. They also kind of narrowed the width down on the profile, so it's not as chunky of a feel in the hand as I remember from the Model A's and the Model B's. Shape is slightly different, but you've still got that rock solid action. The switch here on the front is also changed up in shape a little bit, more abrupt on the back. And that sound, oh man. The closing sound on these knives is just so auditorily impressive or satisfying. Not quite as satisfying of a sound on the extension, but that's so nice.
Do you need a minute?
Maybe. What I also like about it that SOG also kind of took a cue from this knife when they did their cover switch on their knife is the track, because the button here is oversized, the track is completely hidden underneath of it, so you don't see any of that. It looks just like a floating switch, and it also makes it a little harder for lint or anything to get into that track as well, which is quite nice. Backside, you've got a plate there with some traction going on, some milled. If this were on a blade spine, we'd call it jimping. And a little spring-loaded clip here, nice, massive looking clip with a little bit of section milled out of the carbon fiber inlay there so that it sits really nicely. When I say this is one of the best best knives out there because of what it does, I really mean it. This thing, really impressive. I just wish we had a few more so this would be in stock by the time this video goes up. we'll just have to, all of us, you guys and me, just kind of look at it longingly instead. Thomas doesn't care. He'll spend that money to buy another truck or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you'd rather have an OTF knife, a still very excellent OTF knife that doesn't cost quite that much and is available. I say that now, hopefully, again, it is still available by the time the video goes up. Some RECON-035s from Guardian Tactical are in stock right now. $325 for this particular knife. We've got a 3 3/8 inch drop point profile here. Actually, I was talking about hollow and flat grinds before. The swedge almost feels hollow ground. In fact, it is hollow ground. Look at that. Whereas the standard portion of the blade is flat ground there, kind of a saber grind going on. Now the milling you see on each side of this blade is pretty much for decorative purposes. This isn't a folder that you could use that for like thumb opening, but it looks pretty cool. Again, we've got an aluminum handle with carbon fiber inlays, just like that Deadlock, but this is not a cover switch operated OTF. This is a side switch, and it is a not as ambidextrous as something like that Guardian, or sorry, as that Deadlock that we just looked at, because the pocket clip is right side only in this case. Action is very good. This is another knife where we have a switch design that's a little asymmetrical. Works well when pulling back due to the shape there, but when you're going to push it forward, having it scooped out the way it is gives you really positive retention. Not going to be as stable as the Deadlock, but like I said, nothing pretty much is. But you can hear the wiggle more than you can feel it, really. This is, again, just something that is part and parcel to an OTF, no matter who makes it out there. So they still are very stable, nothing to worry about. Actually, this feels pretty good as a carry. It doesn't feel super heavy. 3.5 ounces, that's pretty good for an OTF. Definitely not gonna weigh you down. All right, speaking of SOG, I don't have their Pentagon OTF here. I've shown some bigger versions of this knife before, but I actually haven't handled the compact version of the new SOG-TAC Auto since they came in and sold out of our first run. So now's the perfect time for me to look at them here and share it with you. $125 for this guy, much more affordable than anything we've looked at so far. I think so. No, yep.
Which is saying a lot for an automatic.
Which is saying a lot for an automatic, actually, which is pretty impressive. D2 blade, just under 3 inches. I love the flat ground profiled clip points that they gave to these knives, both the full size and this smaller version right here. The shape is nice, great EDC shape. The grind is a full flat, like I mentioned, and a very thin blade steel going on, so it is slicey. Just a great EDC knife with automatic capability. You can also get this in a California version with the 2-inch blade if you want this knife for that purpose. And you still get the full-sized handle of the small model. They don't shrink the handle down to match the shorter blade in that case, which is good because it's kind of a 3.5 finger grip for me, but it gives me a nice solid hold on the blade. Lots of control, and you're still gonna want that when you get down to that smaller size, because if that's what you're restricted to, you might as well be able to push it a little bit harder. Pocket clip is folded over, not quite as deep carry as the milled pocket clip on that Terrain 365 that I showed you earlier. That's a perfect example of comparison there. Aluminum handles, nice, finely milled. Again, fairly thin, gonna hold or gonna carry really nicely in the pocket. We have an automatic version of their XR crossbar lock, and I love the execution. I've talked about this on the full-size versions because the lock is incorporated into that opening action. You've got 2 stages. You can see right there, when you pull it back slightly, the red dot appears and it is quote-unquote ready to fire. Pull back, blade flies open really nicely. If you want a little more security, I mean, it's not gonna fly out on its own because it still is held captive in the blade, but you can click it forward, give you a little bit of extra peace of mind. And then if high stress situation does arise and you have to pull the knife out and get it open quickly, it's still the same motion. You don't have to come up with any other extra motion to unlock the blade. Even if you practice it, you might forget you have to do that in a certain situation, so not having to even worry about it is pretty darn awesome. All right, next up, we've got a couple of non-knifey cutting things, including a restock of our Rexford utility tool exclusives, the Rut V4. Price on these, $165, milled here in the USA, and the exclusive versions here to us have this nice maze milling pattern going on the front. Gives you a little bit more grip than some versions out there, which is quite nice. And of course, the blade retracts into the handle. We've got a couple of different positions on the open as well. Backside, multi-tool, because we got a cap lifter there. We've also got more multi-tool stuff. We've got a pry bar / screwdriver tip and a 1/4-inch bit holder there. If you wanted to insert a bit there, you'd be able to do some turning with this. So good to have that little bit of extra utility going on. All right, last but not least, actually this is the most affordable thing this week. Some of the Mummert custom titanium credit card knives, $85 for this guy. And yep, it is a credit card size knife. You could slip it in your wallet. Just watch the edge right over here. You've got, well, you can see the actual sharp sections here on the front a little bit easier, but the way they do that, since this is titanium, which doesn't hold an edge on its own, the back side here, you can see it's essentially carbidized to give you a little bit of bite for that edge. Really like this this Joker playing card version going on. Looks very striking, a little bit sinister with the skull head on the Joker itself. Some nice colors going on. You see the colors there on the back as well. Just really, really cool. Another thing here made right here in the USA. All right, that's all I've got to show you today, folks. Again, if you're looking for some more attainable stuff, wait just a couple of days. We're gonna have our SHOT Show preview with some really cool new knives on Saturday, and keep an eye out next week for our SHOT Show coverage. If you wanna get your hands on any of these knives, except for the sold out stuff, there will be links in the description to take you over to KnifeCenter.com. Make sure you sign up for our Knife Rewards program so that you can earn some free money to spend on your next knife when you buy one of these knives today. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center, signing off. See you next time.
You want to know how I got these cards?
That's funny.